Action, a genre of media that typically depicts acts of violence and physical feats as the driving force for confrontation and spectacle in the story. I think we're all familiar with action. We've all seen it, we've heard about it, and if you're a real one, you're about it. Like my friend Bout That Action Jackson from the 1988 movie Action Jackson starring Apollo Creed. As you can see, yes, I have moved to Egypt. Funny guy, I know, fun guy, Kawhi. I think the next step that my content needs to take to be truly what I need it to be is to become a Nakey Jakey clone, and an Internet Pit Stop clone, and an On the Rise clone, and kind of a Lextorius clone, but not really. And also, so let me know how y'all feel about the new style, but in the meantime, let's talk about how the action genre is dead.
I'm high on believing that you're in love with me.
When we talk about the death of a genre, of course, I don't mean the complete stoppage in production of said films in that genre. Of course, that'd be stupid. But taking a look at some of the social discourse around movies, which are mainly in the action genres such as Transformers, Fast and Furious, James Bond, and even to an extent the MCU over the past 3 to 5 years, we've seen a decline in the positive reception, anticipation, and acclaim that these movies have gotten. Since about 2019, I think that we can all agree that there's been somewhat of a difference and change in the way that people act and converse around the movies that have come out in this genre over the past few years. I mean, growing up in the late 2000s and the early 2010s, every single year, the biggest movie of the year was going to be a summer blockbuster, big action movie, regardless of what franchise it was from, because we had an abundance, to be honest with you. It was between that, which was going to be the biggest movie of the year, or the yearly Disney/Pixar movie, because there was that one year with Frozen, and like no other MCU movies, at least no good ones, except Iron Man 3. I think Iron Man 3 came out in 2013. It's good. Please watch it. With the rise of popularity in Harry Potter, the Avengers, the return and the eventual domination of the box office by Star Wars with the sequels, the continuation of both Fast and Furious and the Jurassic World and Park franchises, and then okay, I get it. My childhood was dominated by these big summer blockbuster action flicks that people loved, not only for the movie itself, but because of the event that the entire film was shaped around. Like whenever it would come out, there would be new merchandise that would come out. There would be events at the movies. It would be on everyone's lunchbox. It would be the topic of every lunch about whatever was on your lunchbox, whether it was Power Rangers, Transformers, Harry Potter, or I don't know, Lego movies. Despite the fact that coming out the decade, we look back at Whiplash, Wolf of Wall Street, Django, and Inception as the best movies of the era, the biggest dollars, the biggest crowds, and the biggest pop culture shift came every time there was an action movie released. Now, why do I think this changed despite the world-shattering numbers that No Way Home, Doctor Strange, and even Top Gun Maverick have just hit us with so far in the decade? It's because of the discussion about these franchises more than anything. Even with financial success and dominance, I have never seen collective outrage about the MCU, or to be honest, any film franchise, like I have seen for this franchise of movies since 2019. So right now, to look at every article detailing and addressing the underpaid and overworked CGI workers and the dissatisfaction with these films, and every time I hear someone talk about Marvel, they're talking about the wokeism, or they're talking about how they hate it, or they're talking about how Disney's ruining everything. It's so troubling, despite the fact that 2 of their movies have already made $1 billion. Like, trust me, I know that people are still going to see these movies, and between the shows still topping the charts on Disney Plus, propelling it to have the most active subscriber base out of all streaming services in 2023, I know we can question whether all of this actually matters. But just the simple fact that there is so much outrage about these things shows me that some way, shape, or form audiences are starting to expect more out of media that they consume, no matter how popular it is, and no matter whether it used to or still does satisfy them in the first place. Once upon a time, Michael Bay's Transformers, Taika Waititi's Thor, and whoever the fuck does Fast and Furious had a shared fan base of the masses who were honestly taken aback by the spectacle and the fun that these films offered. Now, Transformers fans are at the very bottom of all fan bases ever. People think that Fast and Furious fans officially have lost any type of potential for any critical thought at all. And even a franchise like Star Wars has seen its support and claim go down, even as it started to introduce more superhero feats and such. And so far in the 2020s, I mean, we've seen a full of fan service film in Mario get $1 billion. We've seen the Batman take a more noir and detective-like approach to the Caped Crusader and make like $750 million. And even in some projects like Wakanda Forever, Guardians Volume 3, we have seen that the acclaim for these projects, despite coming from the wheelhouse that is the MCU, a large percentage of the reason why even the average movie-going audience loves them is the emotional connection that they give from these, and the shared loss that we feel in Wakanda Forever, watching a character on screen go through a loss that also we in real life actually had to deal with the loss of an actor and of a person who was so wonderful and should have been in this movie, but because of unforeseen circumstances, both in character and out, he's not. Instead of focusing on the action set pieces, the coolness of Winter Soldier, the epicness of Civil War, the bombasticness of Endgame, people have started to look at the moments in between. The emotional connection between characters on a screen and people in a seat. And people have started to realize the things that they love in these movies had nothing to do with fist flying and with gun shooting. It had to do with what they mean to you, what they mean to me. And we've started to actually praise films that do that, regardless of what genre they're in. Especially in the action genre, the barrier for entry and the barrier for acclaim is starting to rise the ranks as the barrier for satisfaction doesn't do anything. It plateaus. That's why this movie made $1 billion. To help lock in the point for this video, I talked to my homeboy RJ. He had an interesting outlook on this topic. I wanted to talk to him because he's one of the few people that I know that has been analyzing media more than me and potentially better than me, but don't tell him I tell you that. Watch him right here, and also like up there. Hopefully y'all enjoy the little conversation that we have. If you want to see all of it, it is on my Patreon. Yes, I have a Patreon where you can see not only the full hour and 20-minute conversation that we had, but also a lot of reactions to some movies, my reviews to some movies I see by myself, and just some other coinkydinks and things that you guys want to see. Okay, watch him.
And like I said, you even see it within John Wick. It's like they pick a lane, and not unsuccessful, but uncritically successful stuff like James Bond, Fast and Furious. They try to tread that middle line, and they fail miserably because it doesn't work. And it's like either you make a movie about family or you make a movie about these action guys just doing these random heist missions.
Yeah,
we're not really bonded to these characters. We don't really care.
They're action heroes. Again, if you want to see the full conversation that we had, go check out the Patreon in the description below, as well as check out his channel if you're interested in seeing him more. But we'll hear from him later. So for now, let's get back to the funeral of this once dominant genre. Of course, in the 2000s, you have the big three in the golden age of WSJ action shonen series, with years in between of dominance shared from Hunter x Hunter, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Fairy Tail, etc. In the 90s, you had a lot of mecha series dominating with big robotic battles, which redefined how anime fans viewed action, as well as the resurgence of Dragon Ball Z and a few new action shows like Yu Yu Hakusho and Rurouni Kenshin. 80s were similar with Fist of the North Star, Ashita no Joe, and the original Dragon Ball, but were also dominated by the drama of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, Ikoku House, and Yurusei Yatsura. I'd also be dumb not to mention the beginning of Studio Ghibli's worldwide dominance with the release of Castle in the Sky, Grave of the Fireflies, My Neighbor Totoro, and Kiki's Delivery Service. So it's not like action was the super dominant genre in anime like it was in film for arguably the last 40 years. But what still holds true in anime like film is the average shift in motivation as well as just mindset of the average anime fan over the past few years. As anime's grown in the West, of course, we've seen an influx in people consuming the medium and beginning to realize what they love about their favorite shows and movies. You have Attack on Titan with its world-shattering episodes that just buckle you in no matter whether you're ready or not and take you for the ride that you're just unprepared for, which is the roller coaster that is season 1 of Attack on Titan. Then you have Naruto with its development of jutsu and level of fight choreography that is unmatched in shonen at the time, and just takes you through a very personal journey that you can put yourselves in the shoe of and really empathize with a lot of characters in that series, but hopefully not Itachi. And then you have One Punch Man with its comedic timing, visual spectacle, while portraying the most unstoppable force in all of anime. Yes, he beats Goku, I don't care. All these series and more garnered more and more and more and more and more people to come into the anime community that were enticed by all these feats and fights and powers and prowess. And because of that, it led to a very one-dimensional look at shonen during the younger years of a lot of people's early anime journey in the early 2000s. But I think that all changed when this little thing happened on the internet. Yes, I'm talking about AniTube. I think a large reason as to why some of the conversations have changed on anime in the past decade or so is because of the rise of AniTube and like anime forums and just conversational sites to talk about anime. And honestly, you could apply this to the film industry as well. I don't know why I didn't mention it earlier, stupid old me. It led to having conversations about what everyone was watching and potentially led to more nuanced opinions being formed about the things that we liked and disliked.
Even if you look back and reread the era of the big three, a lot of them were chalked up to just action shows. Just looking at Naruto and from Naruto to Naruto Shippuden, Kishimoto started adding more political elements to it, more ideologies to it. Even beforehand, it wasn't just fighting; it was action with a purpose.
They serviced each other. Definitely.
Yeah, and that's kind of what made Naruto and like Bleach and all that so successful. I mean, Ichigo gets mind fucked every arc. That's kind of what made it so successful. And I think that when the new generation came in, they kind of agreed with the fans and were clouded by the action. They're like, oh, as long as I make this cool action piece, again, picking on Black Clover, as long as I make this cool action piece, then I'm going to be successful.
For example, when SAO came out, it brought in tons of new anime fans who fell in love with the idea of a VR or AR game world in real life before we saw the same thing be adapted in Black Mirror, Ready Player One, Altered Carbon, Kiss Me First, kind of Westworld, Log Horizon, Ender's Game. Basically, if you've seen anything else before or after SAO, it's not special. But as Mother's Basement and even some other AniTubers began their crusade on shining light on the shortcomings, the plot holes, and the lack of narrative cohesion, over time people's opinions began to change. And as people came into the community in the future, one of the defining questions and opinions for an incoming weeb could have been, is SAO ass? And the answer is yes. This was just one example, and a small one at that, with a singular YouTuber's crusade on a singular series. But honestly, as the Gigax grew, the Anime Mans of the world, the Nux Takus, the Super Eye Patch Wolves of the world grew, so did the cultural zeitgeist around those opinions, either feeding off of it or going around it and developing their own brand or their own opinion based off of the arguments that were presented in some of those videos. Even in shows like MHA, Attack on Titan, and Mob Psycho, we've seen drastic changes in how audiences have conversations about these types of media. From people being blown away by the few punches that All Might was throwing in season 1, to the analysis and the claim that someone like a short-lived character like Stain got in season 2, to the criticism and critiques that Deku has gotten for being a bland protagonist in previous seasons, we've seen the discussions about this anime get more and more nuanced, get more and more narrative focused, and also just change in more ways than one. Especially in something like Attack on Titan, we've seen a tremendous switch in the bombasticness of the earlier seasons being what drew people in to the events of season 1, but then it came to be the narrative twists, turns, and revelations that got people enticed and put it in contention for very seriously being the most watched show in the world. Instead of articles being written about two very giant, very 30-foot tall, very naked men fighting in the middle of fuck nowhere Madagascar, apparently, we now see think pieces on the political aspects of this show and the potential Nazi propaganda spread by Isayama and Aaron. And that's also stupid. If you're writing those articles, you need to log off, you need to pause this video and give yourself a very well-deserved slap. The slice of life moments of Chainsaw Man and the down to earth in between moments of JJK is what's heralded by fans of the series. In 2023, that's just what fans are clamoring for, because even in something like Demon Slayer, which is currently airing, yes, the action's great, but it doesn't have those moments where you get to sit down and care about anything or any person that's really involved with the plot or the story. Despite having some still jaw-dropping action scenes similar to episode 19 of season 1 back in 2019, the talk of the town with Kimetsu no Yaiba is the fact that no one's talking about it. So many people are just watching swords swinging and not feeling their hearts racing. Audiences are getting smarter. I tried to describe and explain a few reasons as to why I think that's the case today, but even if I didn't do a good job of that, I think that at the end of the day, we can just chalk it up to the natural progression of an art form or medium. Every day, there's a new person learning and looking for more psychological conversations in their shows, searching for the political themes in movies, and begging for a more emotional and intimate connection on their screen. And at the end of the day, I'm still here just talking about fighting robots and naked 30-foot men. Regardless of whether they're still making money or not, I think that the days of these studios and companies putting a bunch of fights on the screen for 90% of the time and expecting us to settle for style over substance for 90% of our film and media, I think those days are over. Or at least, I hope. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I have a Patreon, by the way. So for just $5 a month, you can subscribe to the Patreon and see some behind the scenes footage of the makings of some of these videos as well as some others. Some reactions to some movies with my hood rat friends. Even if you don't subscribe to the Patreon, I just appreciate everyone for watching this video. This is the first using this thing. And I'm really tired. I've been recording for like 45 minutes. It's insane and it's hot because I can't turn on the fan. But I thank you for watching this video. That's enough support for me. I just appreciate everyone who's got to this point. Now I gotta edit this, as well as like 2 other things, one of them for the Patreon. So I hope that y'all have a good day. Hope y'all liked this. Let me know how y'all think about this new style. Check out RJ. Shout out to him for helping me make the video. And I will catch you guys later. Peace.